The great crystal dome of the Galactic Senate hung in space like a jewel against the burning light of Axiom Prime. The neutron star's radiation painted everything in shades of blue and silver, casting long shadows through the transparent walls of the massive station. Inside the main chamber, representatives from 847 different species sat in their designated sections, each area carefully designed to accommodate their unique needs. Emperor Zeth-Kalar stood at the center podium. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of authority. His purple skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and the golden crown on his elongated head caught the starlight from outside. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed the spiral arms of their galaxy, with different colored zones marking the territories of various species and empires. "My fellow beings," the Emperor began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems that converted his words into hundreds of different languages simultaneously. "Today marks a significant moment in galactic history. Today we close the book on one of the most troublesome chapters our peaceful civilization has ever faced." The chamber fell silent. Even the usual rustling and chittering from the insectoid delegates stopped. Everyone knew what this meeting was about, but hearing it made official always carried weight. "The human problem," Zeth-Kalar continued, "has finally been solved." A low murmur ran through the assembled crowd. Some delegates leaned forward in their seats while others activated their personal recording devices. The Vrex ambassador, a creature that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a tree, clicked its mandibles together in what passed for applause among its species. 3 standard months ago, our forces completed the pacification of the Sol system, the Emperor announced. The human homeworld of Earth has been rendered uninhabitable. Their colonies throughout what they called human space have been either destroyed or abandoned. After extensive searches, our military commanders report that no viable human populations remain anywhere in the galaxy. The holographic display changed, showing images that made several delegates cover their optical organs: burning cities on Earth, destroyed space stations floating dead in the void, massive craters where human settlements once stood. The footage was convincing, showing the complete devastation of everything humans had built. Senator Clickstar of the Silicon Collective raised one of his crystalline appendages. "Your Majesty, are we certain that all human populations have been accounted for? Their species was known for their tendency to spread and hide in unexpected places." Emperor Zeth-Kalar's expression grew stern. "Our search teams have been thorough, Senator. We tracked down every registered human colony, every mining station, every deep space habitat. The few humans who managed to escape the initial strikes were hunted down by our Void Guard units. I have here sworn statements from our field commanders confirming total elimination." He gestured, and new documents appeared on everyone's personal displays: combat reports, casualty estimates, and official confirmations from dozens of military units. The numbers were staggering. According to the reports, over 12 billion humans had been eliminated during the campaign. "But why was this necessary?" asked Ambassador Thelnara from the Peaceful Worlds Coalition. Her blue skin seemed to pale as she spoke. "The humans, while aggressive, had not directly threatened most of our members." A harsh laugh echoed from the warrior caste section. General Vraktok, a massive reptilian being covered in natural armor plating, stood up from his seat. "Not directly threatened? Have you forgotten the Battle of Kepler Station? Or the human raid on the meditation worlds? They were a cancer, spreading through our galaxy, taking what they wanted without regard for our established order." "The general speaks truth," Zeth-Kalar agreed. "Humans were unpredictable. They did not follow the proper protocols for expansion. They did not respect the boundaries we had carefully established over millennia. Worse, they were teaching other species to behave like them. The contamination was spreading." More murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. It was true that several younger species had begun adopting human practices: rapid expansion, aggressive exploration, and worst of all, questioning the authority of the established galactic order. Their military capabilities were also growing at an alarming rate, added Admiral Zendros from the Core Fleet Command. "In just 200 years, they went from primitive chemical rockets to ships that could challenge our best designs. Given another century, they might have become a genuine threat to galactic stability." The display changed again, showing technical analyses of captured human weapons and ships. The data was impressive and frightening. Human technology had advanced incredibly quickly, often in directions that surprised even the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. So we acted, Emperor Zethkalar declared. "We acted decisively, completely, and necessarily. The human threat has been eliminated. Their territories are now available for redistribution among our loyal member species." This announcement caused excited chatter throughout the chamber. New territory meant new resources, new worlds to colonize, new opportunities for expansion. The idea of dividing up former human space was clearly popular with many delegates. "I propose that we vote to formally declare humanity extinct," the Emperor continued. "This will allow us to remove them from all galactic records and begin the process of redistributing their former holdings." All in favor? Hands, tentacles, claws, and various other appendages rose throughout the chamber. The count was overwhelming. 846 votes in favor. Only one delegate abstained. Ambassador Thelnara from the Peaceful Worlds Coalition. "The motion passes," Zethkalar announced with satisfaction. "Let the record show that on this date humanity is officially declared extinct. Their name will be removed from all current star charts. Their former territories will be redistributed, and their brief chapter in galactic history will be closed." Applause erupted from many sections of the chamber. The sound was strange. Hundreds of different species expressing approval in their own ways. Clapping, clicking, humming, and sounds that had no human equivalent mixed together in a cacophony of celebration. As the noise died down, Emperor Zethkalar raised his hands again. "There will be a celebration feast in the Grand Hall following this session. All delegates are invited to join in commemorating this moment of galactic unity and peace." The session began to break up as delegates started filing out toward the exits. Conversations buzzed with excitement about the new opportunities this would bring. Some were already making deals about which sectors they wanted to claim. In the public observation gallery, a figure sat quietly in the back row. She appeared to be an elderly woman, though that was strange since humans were supposed to be extinct. She wore a simple brown coat that seemed old and worn, and her gray hair was tied back in a simple style. Her eyes were dark and seemed to reflect the light in an unusual way. None of the security scanners had detected her presence. The sensors that should have identified any unauthorized beings in the chamber showed nothing where she sat. Even the automated systems that tracked every breath and heartbeat in the station somehow missed her completely. As the last of the delegates left the chamber, she stood up slowly. Her movements were careful, like someone who had traveled a very long way and was very tired. She looked down at the empty podium where Emperor Zethkalar had just declared her species extinct. A small smile crossed her weathered face, but it was not a pleasant expression. When she smiled, the light seemed to catch something metallic in her mouth, as if her teeth were made of iron. "Extinct," she whispered to herself in the empty chamber. Her voice carried strangely in the space, seeming to echo longer than it should have. How interesting. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps making no sound on the crystal floor. As she reached the doorway, she paused and looked back one more time at the chamber where her children had just been erased from galactic history. "We shall see about that," she said quietly, and then she was gone, leaving only shadows and the faint scent of old forests in her wake. 3 months had passed since the declaration. The Galactic Senate had returned to its normal routines, and the excitement over the redistribution of human territories had settled into the usual bureaucratic procedures. Maps were being redrawn, new colonial charters were being issued, and several species had already begun establishing settlements in what used to be human space. Emperor Zethkalar felt satisfied with how smoothly everything had proceeded. The few protests from the Peaceful Worlds Coalition had been easily ignored, and most of the galaxy seemed relieved that the human problem was finally solved. Trade routes were more stable, expansion followed proper procedures again, and the younger species had stopped asking troublesome questions about galactic authority. The morning session was supposed to be routine, reviewing some territorial disputes in the Outer Rim and approving new mining rights for the Corvin Corporate Syndicate. Senator Valthun of the Christek Dominion was presenting a proposal for expanding crystal, harvesting operations into former human territory when the chamber's security system suddenly activated. Red warning lights began flashing throughout the dome. The automated voice of the station's artificial intelligence echoed through the chamber. "Security breach detected. Unknown entity has entered the main assembly hall. All delegates please remain calm while security responds." Every head in the chamber turned toward the center of the room. where the emergency sensors were focused. At first there was nothing visible, just the empty space around the central podium where speakers normally stood. Then the air seemed to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot metal. Slowly, a figure began to materialize. It was not the dramatic appearance of advanced teleportation technology, nor the controlled manifestation of energy beings. Instead, she simply seemed to step out of somewhere else, as if walking through a door that nobody could see. She was clearly human, a fact that sent immediate shockwaves through the assembled delegates. But more than that, she was obviously old, with gray hair and wrinkled skin that spoke of many years. She wore the same brown coat that had been seen in the observation gallery months ago, though none of the current delegates remembered her from that day. The security response was immediate. Armed guards materialized around the chamber's perimeter, their weapons trained on the intruder. Energy shields snapped into place, creating barriers between the delegates and the central floor. The chamber's defensive systems began charging, preparing to eliminate this impossible threat. "Halt!" shouted Captain Zixmore of the Senate Guard, his plasma rifle aimed directly at the old woman. "Identify yourself immediately." "How did you bypass our security?" The woman looked around the chamber slowly, taking in the hundreds of faces staring at her in shock and fear. When she finally spoke, her voice was clear and strong despite her apparent age. She spoke in perfect galactic standard, though with an accent that seemed to come from somewhere very old and far away. "I am called Baba Yaga," she said simply, "and I have come to collect what is owed." The name sent a ripple of recognition through the chamber. Many delegates had studied human culture as part of the intelligence gathering that preceded the extermination campaign. Baba Yaga was a figure from human folklore, a witch who lived in a house that walked on chicken legs, who helped heroes and punished the wicked. Senator Valthune, his crystalline form glowing brighter with agitation, pointed one of his sharp appendages at her. "Impossible. That is a fictional character from human mythology. You cannot be real." The old woman turned to look at him directly. When she smiled, the light caught her teeth and they gleamed like polished metal. "Your species has much to learn about the difference between fiction and truth, Crystal Singer. You are human," Emperor Zethkalar stated, rising from his throne-like seat at the head of the chamber. "That is impossible. Humans are extinct. I declared it so myself based on confirmed reports from our military." "Did you?" Baba Yaga asked, tilting her head slightly. "How interesting. I was not consulted about this declaration. Neither were my children." Captain Zixmore's patience ran out. "Enough talk. You are trespassing in a secure facility. Surrender immediately or we will open fire." "Fire away, little soldier," the old woman said calmly. The captain did not hesitate. His plasma rifle discharged with a brilliant flash of energy that should have vaporized any organic being. The beam struck Baba Yaga directly in the chest and passed right through her as if she were made of mist. Panic erupted in the chamber. Delegates began screaming in their various languages, some trying to flee toward the exits, others activating personal shields and weapons. The security guards opened fire with everything they had: plasma beams, particle bolts, sonic disruptors, and even old-fashioned projectile weapons. Nothing touched her. Every shot passed through her harmlessly, striking the walls behind her and leaving scorch marks on the crystal surfaces. She stood calmly in the center of the chaos, seemingly unaffected by the violence directed at her. "Stop!" Emperor Zethkalar commanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. "Ceasefire immediately." The shooting stopped, but the panic continued. Delegates huddled in their seats, some activating emergency personal teleporters to escape the chamber entirely. Others sat frozen in terror, unable to process what they were seeing. "What are you?" the Emperor demanded, his forearms trembling slightly despite his attempt to maintain dignity. "I told you," Baba Yaga replied. "I am Baba Yaga. I am the guardian of thresholds, the keeper of boundaries, the one who walks between what is and what is not. I am the shadow that follows every culture's children, the wisdom hidden in their oldest stories." She began walking slowly around the chamber, her footsteps making no sound on the crystal floor. As she moved, the temperature seemed to drop, and several delegates noticed that their breath was beginning to mist in the suddenly cold air. "You see, Your Majesty," she continued, "when you decided to eliminate my children, you made a fundamental error. You believed that destroying their bodies would be enough. You thought that burning their worlds and hunting down their ships would end their story. It did end their story, General Vraktok growled from his section, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. We confirmed the elimination of all human populations. Baba Yaga stopped walking and looked directly at the reptilian general. Did you? Tell me, General. What do you know about human stories? What do you know about the tales they told their young ones in the dark times? Primitive superstitions, Admiral Zendros interjected. Folklore and fantasy. We studied their cultural database before the campaign. Studied, but did not understand, the old woman corrected. You saw stories about witches and monsters, heroes and magic. You cataloged them as entertainment, as primitive attempts to explain a universe they did not yet comprehend scientifically. She resumed her slow circuit of the chamber. But stories are not just entertainment, Admiral. Stories are instructions. They are the coded wisdom of a species, passed down through generations. They teach the young how to survive, how to think, how to become more than what they were. The chamber had grown very quiet. Even the most frightened delegates found themselves listening despite their terror. There was something hypnotic about her voice, something that demanded attention. In the human stories, Baba Yaga continued, there is always a witch in the woods, always an old woman who knows secrets, who helps those who are worthy and punishes those who are not. She tests heroes, guards magical items, and ensures that the worthy receive what they have earned. She stopped in front of Emperor Zethkalar's section. The humans told these stories because they knew, deep in their genetic memory, that someday they would need such a guardian. Someday, when they faced extinction, when their children were scattered to the winds, someone would need to ensure that justice was served. You speak in riddles, the Emperor said, though his voice was quieter now. Do I? Baba Yaga smiled again, and this time her iron teeth caught the light in a way that seemed to cast shadows where there should have been none. Let me speak more plainly then. You declared my children extinct. Yet here I stand in the very heart of your power, speaking to you face to face. If humans are truly gone, what am I? The question hung in the air like a challenge. None of the delegates seemed able to answer it. 3 days, she said finally. I will give you 3 days to consider the implications of my presence here. 3 days to think about what it means that your perfect military campaign missed something. 3 days to wonder what else might be walking in the spaces between your certainty and the truth. She turned toward the center of the chamber, where the air began to shimmer again. I suggest you use that time wisely, Your Majesty, because when I return, we will discuss what you owe my children for the crime of declaring them dead while they still drew breath among the stars. The shimmer intensified, and Baba Yaga began to fade from view, but her voice remained clear as she delivered her final words. Remember, in all the human stories, the witch always collects what is owed. Then she was gone, leaving behind only the scent of old forests and winter nights, and a chamber full of very frightened galactic leaders. The 3 days passed like a nightmare for Emperor Zethkalar. After Baba Yaga's impossible appearance in the Senate chamber, he had ordered every intelligence agency in the Hegemony to investigate. He wanted answers about how a supposedly extinct human had penetrated the most secure facility in the galaxy. And more importantly, he wanted to know if there were others. The reports that came back only deepened his confusion and fear. Every sensor array, every recording device, every security system showed the same impossible truth. She had simply appeared from nowhere and vanished into nothing. The energy signatures made no sense. The quantum analyzers detected patterns that violated known laws of physics. Even worse were the reports starting to filter in from the outer territories. Ships were going missing. Entire patrol fleets would simply vanish from their assigned routes, leaving behind only empty space and unanswered distress calls. When investigation teams arrived at the last known positions, they found nothing. No debris, no energy signatures, no signs of battle. It was as if the ships had simply ceased to exist. On the 3rd day, as Emperor Zethkalar sat in his private chambers reviewing yet another report of missing vessels, his communication system activated without authorization. The security protocols should have prevented any unauthorized access, but the screen flickered to life anyway, showing the aged face of Baba Yaga. "Good morning, Your Majesty," she said pleasantly, as if they were old friends having a casual conversation. "I trust you have been thinking about our previous discussion." "How are you doing this?" the Emperor demanded, gesturing frantically for his security chief to trace the signal. Our systems are completely isolated. Your systems, she replied with that same unsettling smile, assume that communication requires physical connections. But stories travel differently, don't they? They move through the spaces between thoughts carried on whispers and memories. Before the Emperor could respond, she continued, I promised you 3 days to think. Have you reached any interesting conclusions? You are one survivor, Zethkalar said, trying to project confidence he did not feel. Perhaps a few others. Our campaign was thorough, but no military operation achieves perfect results. We will find you and finish what we started. Baba Yaga's laugh was like wind through dead leaves. One survivor? Oh, Your Majesty, you still do not understand. Allow me to educate you. The image on his screen changed, showing a star map of the galaxy. At first it looked normal, with the familiar markers showing Hegemony territory, member worlds, and patrol routes. Then new markers began appearing, thousands of them, scattered throughout space like stars in the night sky. Each of these markers, Baba Yaga explained, represents a human presence that your intelligence services failed to detect. You see, you made the same mistake that many predators make when hunting humans. You assumed that because you found their nests, you had found all of them. The Emperor stared at the map in growing horror. There were human markers everywhere. Hidden bases in asteroid fields, cloaked ships in deep space, underground facilities on supposedly uninhabited worlds. Some were in the heart of Hegemony territory, practically next door to major military installations. Impossible, he whispered. Our surveys were complete. We mapped every human settlement, every colony ship, every outpost. You mapped the ones they wanted you to find, she corrected. You see, humans learned something very important during their expansion into space. They learned that the galaxy was full of older, more powerful species who might not welcome their presence. So they adapted. New images appeared on the screen. Human colonies built inside hollowed-out asteroids, their energy signatures masked by advanced stealth technology, ships that looked like space debris from the outside but contained full living quarters within, underground cities on worlds that appeared completely barren to orbital scans. They became very good at hiding, Baba Yaga continued. They learned to mask their heat signatures, to redirect their communications through quantum relays, to live and work in places where your sensors could not reach. They studied your detection methods and found ways around every single one. The Emperor's security chief burst into the room, his mandibles clicking in agitation. Your Majesty, we have emergency reports coming in from across the sector. The Corvin mining operation in the Sirius region has gone completely dark. The Vrex hive ship Eternal Harmony is not responding to communications. And the fortress world of Kragan Prime reports that their orbital defense platforms are offline. How many incidents? The Emperor asked, though he dreaded the answer. 47 confirmed so far, sir, all in the last 6 hours. Baba Yaga's image nodded approvingly. It has begun. You declared war on humanity, Your Majesty. Now you get to see what war with humanity actually looks like. This is impossible. The Emperor slammed his 4 fists on his desk. We destroyed their fleets. We eliminated their military capability. You destroyed the fleets you could see, she corrected. But humans are very creative when it comes to warfare. They learned that the best way to fight a superior enemy is to become invisible, to strike from the shadows, to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The images on the screen changed again, showing footage that made the Emperor's blood run cold. Human soldiers in advanced armor that seemed to bend light around them, moving through hegemony facilities like ghosts. Ships that appeared out of nowhere, struck with devastating precision and vanished before defenders could respond. Weapons that seemed to reach through solid matter to strike at targets within shielded installations. Where did they get these technologies? The Emperor demanded. They learned, Baba Yaga said simply. 200 years of contact with galactic civilization taught them many things. They studied your science, your tactics, your weaknesses. They traded with species you had never heard of, in markets you did not know existed. And when you decided to hunt them, they put all of that knowledge to work. General Vraktok's image appeared on another screen, his scaled face twisted with anger and fear. Your Majesty, my garrison on Theta Centauri is under attack. But the attackers, we cannot hit them. Our weapons pass through them like they are not there. Dimensional shifting, Baba Yaga explained calmly. Humans discovered that your weapons are calibrated for targets that exist fully in normal space. But there are other dimensions, other ways of being. Humans learned to step sideways from reality, to exist partially in spaces your sensors cannot detect. More reports flooded in. Admiral Zendros called from the core fleet, his voice tight with panic. Emperor! Half my battle group just disappeared. They were there one moment, gone the next. No explosion, no energy signature, nothing. Quantum displacement, the old woman said. Very useful for relocating enemy assets to places where they cannot interfere. A gas giant's core, for instance, or the heart of a star. The communication screen divided into dozens of smaller images as reports came in from across the hegemony. Station commanders, planetary governors, fleet admirals, all reporting the same impossible story. Human forces were attacking everywhere at once, using technologies that seemed to violate the fundamental laws of physics. But how? The Emperor asked, his voice breaking. How can there be so many of them? How can they coordinate across such distances? Baba Yaga's smile became wider, revealing more of her iron teeth. You really do not understand what you destroyed, do you? You killed their bodies, burned their worlds, scattered their ships, but you never touched their minds. A new image appeared, a vast network of glowing connections spreading throughout the galaxy like the neural pathways of a gigantic brain. Humans developed quantum consciousness transfer decades before your attack. When death came for them, they uploaded themselves, became something new. They exist now as pure information, able to manifest in physical form when needed, but beyond the reach of conventional weapons. The Emperor felt his remaining confidence crumble. What do you want? What I said before. What is owed? Baba Yaga's expression became serious. You attempted genocide, Your Majesty. You tried to erase an entire species from existence. In human stories, such crimes always carry a price. The attacks continued to escalate throughout the conversation. Defense installations fell silent one by one. Trading posts reported their inventory simply vanishing. Even the most heavily defended worlds found their security systems compromised by intruders who should not have been able to exist. Stop this, the Emperor pleaded. What do you want us to do? 3 things, she replied. First, public admission that humanity was never extinct, that your declaration was premature and based on incomplete information. Second, immediate withdrawal from all territories claimed from former human space. Third, reparations for the attempted genocide, resources, technology, and guarantees that such an action will never be attempted again. And if we refuse? Baba Yaga's image began to fade, but her voice remained clear. Then you will learn why humans tell stories about things that hunt in the dark. You will discover what happens when the witch in the woods decides that you have failed her test. You have one galactic standard day to make your decision, Your Majesty. Choose wisely, because in all the human stories, justice always finds a way. The screen went dark, leaving Emperor Zethkalar alone with the sound of his empire falling apart around him. Emperor Zethkalar's decision came swiftly and predictably. Within hours of Baba Yaga's ultimatum, he had mobilized every available ship in the Hegemony fleet. Pride and fear warred within him, but pride won. He could not, would not, bow to the demands of what he still insisted was merely a handful of surviving humans using stolen technology. We will show the galaxy that the Hegemony does not negotiate with terrorists, he declared in an empire-wide broadcast. These human remnants think they can hide in shadows and strike from darkness. We will drag them into the light and finish what we started. The response was overwhelming. Over 10,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, converged on the last known positions of human activity. Dreadnoughts the size of small moons, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Carrier ships launching clouds of fighter craft. Mobile battle stations equipped with sensors that could detect a single molecule of human DNA across vast distances. Admiral Zendros commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Infinite Resolve, a massive vessel that served as both warship and mobile command center. His tactical displays showed the deployment of forces across dozens of star systems, a net of steel and energy designed to trap and destroy any remaining human presence. Begin deep scans of all systems, he ordered. I want every asteroid, every comet, every speck of space dust examined. Use the quantum resonance detectors. If there are humans hiding anywhere in this sector, we will find them. The hunt began with scientific precision. Fleets spread out across the galaxy, using advanced sensors to probe every possible hiding place. They found evidence of human presence, energy signatures, modified asteroids, traces of advanced technology. But when they arrived at these locations, they found only empty space. "It is like hunting ghosts," complained Captain Theknor of the destroyer squadron assigned to the former Sol system. "The sensors show they were here, but when we arrive there is nothing." This pattern repeated across hundreds of systems. The humans seemed to stay one step ahead of every search, vanishing moments before the hegemony forces arrived. Worse, ships began to disappear from the hunt fleets themselves. Not destroyed, simply gone, as if they had never existed. The first major engagement came in the Proxima sector, where long-range sensors detected a concentration of human ships hiding in the shadow of a gas giant. Admiral Zendros personally led 3 battle groups to the location, confident that this time they had caught their prey. "All ships, maintain formation," he commanded as they dropped out of hyperspace. "Activate quantum inhibitor fields. Whatever technology they are using to disappear, we will prevent them from using it." The battle began immediately. Human ships seemed to materialize from nowhere, striking with weapons that the hegemony had never seen before. Energy beams that passed through shields as if they were not there. Projectiles that curved around defensive barriers to strike vital systems directly. Boarding pods that phased through hull armor to disgorge soldiers into the hearts of enemy ships. How are they doing this? Admiral Zendros demanded as his flagship shuddered under attack from enemies he could barely see on his screens. His tactical officer, a nervous Kandoran with 4 eyes, stammered his response. "Sir, they appear to be using multidimensional warfare tactics. Their ships exist partially in normal space and partially in parallel dimensions. Our weapons can only affect the portions that exist in our reality." The battle raged for 6 hours. Despite having overwhelming numerical superiority, the hegemony forces found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned. Human ships fought like nothing in the tactical databases, appearing and disappearing at will, striking with impossible precision, coordinating their attacks with flawless timing. When it ended, over half of Admiral Zendros' fleet was gone. Not destroyed, gone, vanished without a trace along with their crews. The remaining ships were damaged and demoralized, their crews reporting that they had been fighting enemies who seemed to phase in and out of reality. "Retreat," the Admiral finally ordered, his pride shattered. "All ships withdraw to the rally point." But the retreat only made things worse. As the hegemony fleet tried to regroup, they discovered that human forces were everywhere. Supply convoys vanished between systems. Communication relays went silent. Patrol ships reported contact with human vessels, then simply stopped transmitting. On the fortress world of Dramore Prime, General Vraktok paced in his command bunker, watching reports flow in from across the galaxy. Each one brought worse news than the last. "The orbital defense grid around Kepler Station has been neutralized," reported his aide, a young Vrex whose compound eyes showed obvious fear. "The entire planetary garrison on New Vulcan has vanished. And sir, there are reports of human soldiers walking through the walls of our most secure facilities." "Walking through walls?" the general snarled. "That is impossible." "Yes, sir, but we have video evidence." The humans appeared to have developed personal dimensional shifting technology. They can become intangible at will, moving through solid matter as if it were air. The demonstration came sooner than expected. As the general stood reviewing tactical displays, a figure simply stepped through the reinforced wall of his bunker, a human woman in advanced armor that seemed to bend light around its edges, making her difficult to focus on. She moved with fluid grace, completely unaffected by the heavy gravity of Dramore Prime that would have crushed most species. "General Vraktok," she said politely, as if they were meeting at a social gathering. "I am here to collect your surrender." The general reached for his sidearm, but his hand passed through empty air. The human had shifted slightly out of phase, becoming untouchable while remaining visible. "Your defense systems are offline," she continued conversationally. "Your communication arrays have been redirected. Your orbital platforms are now under our control. This world is ours. How many of you are there?" the general demanded, his military training overcoming his fear. "Enough," she replied. "We learned from your attack, General. We studied your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. Most importantly, we learned that fighting you directly was a mistake. So we changed the rules of engagement." More human soldiers began phasing through the walls of the bunker. Soon, the general found himself surrounded by enemies who could become solid or intangible at will, who moved with perfect coordination, and who seemed to know his every move before he made it. "You cannot defeat the entire hegemony," he said. Though his voice lacked conviction, "We do not need to defeat your fleets," the woman explained. "We have already won. While your ships hunt for us in space, we have taken control of your infrastructure. Your communication networks now belong to us. Your supply lines are compromised. Your most secure facilities have been infiltrated." To demonstrate her point, she activated a holographic display that showed the current status of Hegemony space. Red markers indicated systems under human control, yellow showed systems under attack, and green represented systems still loyal to the Empire. There was far more red and yellow than green. "Your Emperor declared us extinct," she continued. "He was wrong. Extinction implies an ending. What he actually did was force us to evolve." The reports reaching Emperor Zethkalar painted an increasingly desperate picture. Entire sectors had gone dark. Their governments either surrendered or simply vanished. Human forces seemed to be everywhere at once, striking with coordination that suggested a single controlling intelligence. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his science advisors. "How can they coordinate across such vast distances? How can they move through our defenses as if they were not there?" The chief scientist, an ancient being from the scholar caste, trembled as he delivered his analysis. "Your Majesty, based on our observations, we believe the humans have achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They appear to have merged biological consciousness with quantum computing networks." Explain. "They exist simultaneously as individual minds and as part of a collective intelligence. Each human consciousness can access the knowledge and capabilities of all others. They can share memories, coordinate actions instantaneously across any distance, and adapt their tactics faster than our computers can process the changes." And the phasing through matter? Dimensional manipulation on a scale we have never seen. They have learned to exist partially outside normal spacetime, allowing them to bypass our defenses and weapons. Our technology is designed to fight enemies that exist fully in our reality. Against beings who can step sideways from existence itself, we are nearly helpless. The Emperor felt the weight of his mistakes settling on him like a crushing burden. He had declared war on humanity, thinking them primitive and defeated. Instead, he had awakened something far beyond his understanding or ability to control. His communication system activated without authorization, and once again Baba Yaga's face appeared on his screen. But this time she was not alone. Behind her stood dozens of human figures, their eyes glowing with an inner light that spoke of consciousness expanded beyond normal limits. "Your day is up, Your Majesty," she said quietly. "Have you reconsidered our terms?" Emperor Zethkalar stared at the tactical displays surrounding his throne room, watching the last of his empire crumble in real time. Red markers had spread across nearly every system, indicating human control or influence. His greatest fleets were gone, vanished without trace. His most secure installations had been compromised by enemies who could walk through walls and exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But pride dies hard in the hearts of emperors. Even faced with inevitable defeat, Zethkalar refused to surrender. If he could not have victory, he would at least deny his enemies the satisfaction of taking him alive. "Activate the final protocol," he commanded his remaining staff. His voice hollow but determined. His science advisor, one of the few beings still loyal to him, hesitated. "Your Majesty, are you certain?" "The quantum cascade will destroy the entire station, along with everyone aboard." "Do it," the Emperor confirmed. "If I cannot rule the galaxy, then let it remember that the last Galaxy King chose his own ending." The final protocol was a desperate measure, designed for use only in the most extreme circumstances. Deep within the Senate station's core, quantum charges began to build energy. When they detonated, they would create a cascade reaction that would tear a hole in spacetime itself, destroying everything within a 100-kilometer radius. "Baba Yaga," the Emperor called out to the empty air, knowing somehow that she would hear him. "You want to see the end of my empire? Then watch it burn with me. In 30 seconds, this station will become a quantum singularity. You and your impossible existence will be crushed into nothingness along with everything else." The countdown began. 29, 28, 27. The air in the throne room began to shimmer and Baba Yaga materialized before him. But she was not alone. Dozens of human figures appeared with her, their forms glowing with that strange inner light that spoke of consciousness expanded beyond normal limits. 23 seconds, Your Majesty," she observed calmly. "You really think this will work?" Quantum cascade destruction affects all dimensions, the Emperor snarled. Whatever technology allows you to phase through matter will not save you from the collapse of space-time itself. 15 seconds, one of the human figures noted. Unlike Baba Yaga, this one appeared to be a young man, though his eyes held the wisdom of centuries. Should we stop it? Why? Another human asked, this one appearing as a middle-aged woman with silver hair. Let him see, 10 seconds, 9, 8. The Emperor felt a moment of satisfaction. At least he would take these impossible beings with him into oblivion. At least his defeat would not be total. 7, 6, 5. The quantum charges reached critical mass. Energy readings spiked beyond all safe levels. Alarms screamed throughout the station as systems registered the imminent cascade failure. 4, 3, 2. The cascade began. Reality twisted and buckled as quantum forces tore at the fabric of space-time itself. The Emperor felt his body beginning to stretch and distort as gravitational forces beyond. Imagination took hold. 1, 0. The explosion that should have destroyed everything simply stopped. The Emperor found himself suspended in a bubble of calm space while around him, the cascade continued its destructive work. Through the transparent walls of his impossible sanctuary, he could see the station being torn apart by forces that could unmake matter itself. Impressive technology, Baba Yaga commented, standing beside him in the protective bubble as if she belonged there. Quantum cascade destruction. Very thorough. Very final. How? The Emperor gasped, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Time manipulation, the young man explained. We exist partially outside normal temporal flow. From our perspective, we had all the time we needed to create this protective field and study your weapon. The woman with silver hair gestured toward the destruction outside their bubble. It is a good design, efficient. We will add it to our archives. Your archives? The Emperor asked weakly. We collect things, Baba Yaga said simply. Technologies, cultures, stories. Everything that makes a species unique. We have been gathering such treasures for quite some time now. The cascade began to wind down, its fury spent. Where the Senate station had been, only twisted debris and energy signatures remained. But the protective bubble continued to exist, a small island of stability in the chaos. You see, Your Majesty, Baba Yaga continued, what you never understood is that extinction and evolution are often the same thing. When you destroyed our bodies, you forced us to become something new, something better. New figures began to materialize in the bubble. Not just humans, but members of other species the Emperor recognized. Corvin traders, thermal engineers, even some Vrex drones, all of them had that same inner glow, that same sense of expanded consciousness. What have you done to them? He demanded. We offered them a choice, the silver-haired woman replied. Join us willingly and gain access to capabilities beyond their species' normal limits. Remain free to live as they choose, but under our protection. Many chose to join, the young man added. Death was no longer a barrier once we learned to upload consciousness. Species boundaries became meaningless when minds could merge and share knowledge. We are no longer just human, Your Majesty. We have become something new. The Emperor looked around at the mixed group of beings surrounding him. A collective consciousness? More than that, Baba Yaga corrected. A collective story. Every species that joins us adds their knowledge, their culture, their unique perspective to the whole. We grow stronger with each addition. Not through conquest, but through cooperation. Then why the attacks? Why the warfare? Because some lessons can only be taught through strength, she replied. Your empire ruled through fear and violence. You respected only force, so we spoke to you in the language you understood. The protective bubble began to move, carrying them away from the debris of the destroyed station. Through its walls, the Emperor could see ships materializing around them, not the aggressive warships he expected, but vessels of strange and beautiful design that seemed to blend technology with organic curves. Where are you taking me? To see what you have lost, Baba Yaga answered, and what you might yet gain. The journey took them through system after system that had been under hegemony control. But everything had changed. Where once there had been sterile military installations and exploitative mining operations, the Emperor now saw something completely different. On the world of New Kepler, former slaves worked alongside their liberators to build cities that blended the architectural styles of a dozen different species. Vrex hives shared space with Corvin crystal gardens and human habitat domes, creating a harmony the Emperor had never thought possible. The species you oppressed, the young man explained, were more than willing to join us once they understood what we offered. Freedom from your rule, protection from other predators, and the chance to become more than they ever imagined. In the Centauri sector, massive ships worked to restore planets that had been strip-mined by hegemony operations. But these were not just repair efforts, they were transformations, creating ecosystems that had never existed before, blending the best aspects of multiple worlds into something entirely new. You are rebuilding the galaxy, the Emperor observed. We are healing it, Baba Yaga corrected. Your empire took what it wanted and left scars behind. We prefer to plant gardens. They visited dozens of systems, each showing the same pattern. Former hegemony territories were being transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly cooperative civilization where species worked together by choice rather than force. You could have had this without the warfare, the silver-haired woman noted. If you had accepted our initial terms, the transition would have been peaceful. But you chose pride over wisdom, the young man added. You forced us to demonstrate our capabilities the hard way. Finally, they arrived at a world the Emperor recognized, his own homeworld of Zethros Prime. But it had been transformed. The imperial palaces and military installations were gone, replaced by structures that seemed to grow from the landscape itself. Gardens flourished where once there had been weapon factories. Libraries and schools occupied the spaces where torture chambers and prison complexes had stood. Your people, Baba Yaga said gently, were given the same choice as all the others. Join us, remain free under our protection, or leave to find their own path elsewhere. And they chose? Most chose to join. They were tired of living in fear, tired of being part of an empire that demanded cruelty from its citizens. When offered the chance to become something better, they took it. The protective bubble settled on a landing platform, and its walls became permeable. The Emperor stepped out onto the surface of his former homeworld, breathing air that somehow smelled cleaner than he remembered. What happens to me now? He asked. That is your choice, Baba Yaga replied. You can join us as your people did. You can accept exile to some distant world where you can live out your days in peace, or you can choose to learn. Help us understand what drove your empire to such extremes. Share your knowledge so that future civilizations might avoid the same mistakes. The Emperor looked around at the transformed world, at the beings who had once been his subjects now working together in harmony. He thought of his shattered fleet, his fallen empire, his absolute defeat at the